Christianity didn't arise as something entirely new. It emerged from the same cultural ferment that produced the Hellenistic mystery religions spreading throughout the Roman Empire, adopting their structure of initiation rites, secret teachings, ritual meals, and promises of personal salvation through participation in a dying and rising God. The earliest Christians practiced baptism to symbolically reenact the death and resurrection of their Savior. They participated in the Eucharist to commune with that divine being and organized themselves into levels of initiation, where higher ranking members possess secret knowledge forbidden to the uninitiated. The exact features we find in the cults of Mithras, Isis, Osiris, and Dionysus. Rather than Christianity being unique among ancient religions, it fits perfectly within the universal trends of Hellenistic religious syncretism, merging local traditions with foreign elements, promoting monotheism over polytheism, and focusing on individual salvation rather than communal welfare. And welcoming members from all social classes and backgrounds. If you disagree with me about the origins of Christianity, then please call in because the show starts now.
Dear God, it's happening again. Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm Forrest Valkai, and that was an amazing intro by Godless Engineer. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a pretty good Halloween weekend, great Dia de los Muertos, and just all around good right now. Even though my own personal circumstances are a little bit weird, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I get that. I 100% get that. It's a strange time to be alive. It really is. There's a lot of horrible things going on right now, which we're not allowed to mention specifics, but there's a lot of horrible things going on right now. And so I encourage everybody to be kind to yourselves and to others out there. If you have anything left around, any extra that you can spare, donate it to your local food banks, because right now your community needs you really, really bad. A lot of people just lost their SNAP benefits for reasons that I'm not allowed to be specific about because this is a nonprofit organization. So be sure to, if you have, it doesn't have to be a big thing. A lot of people think that charity has to be some massive multi-$1,000 donation, otherwise it doesn't matter. And that's simply not true. If you have $5, $20, $50, skip a cup of coffee a few days in a row and throw that extra money towards your local food bank, your local food pantry. Or if you're not from around the US or you don't know your local food bank or whatever like that, donate to Feeding America. They're another nonprofit organization that worked with a huge network of food banks across the country, as well as doing education programs, lobbying, all sorts of other great things to try to help people get the food they need. We're in hell. We're in hell, but at least we're here together. And that's what's important. Before we get started on the show, I got to let everybody know that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Other thing that I got to let you know is that lines are open right now. If you want to talk to two godless heathens, this is your chance to do so. The number on the bottom of the screen there, 512-991-9242, or the web link in the description is available for anybody who believes in a god or gods and wants to call and talk to us about it. Also, anti-science calls, like if you don't understand evolution and you want to call and talk about it, if you don't understand the shape or the age of the earth and you want to call and talk about it, if you think it's weird that I'm saying understand and not believe and you want to talk about it, this is your chance. We would love to talk to you. We've got, if you want to come laying about the Big Bang or about, how I didn't come from no monkey, this is your opportunity to have calm, sober, rational, quiet, loving conversations with people who disagree with you. And we'll be as nice as you. We're always pleasant as long as we can be. John is incredibly kind. I'm incredibly stupid. And together, we'll make for a great team to help you work through whatever religious or scientific questions you may have. So again, the number on the bottom of the screen, 512-991-9242, or use the web link in the description. John, anything you want to talk about before we take our first call?
No, I mean, I'm excited to take our first call. But jumping off of what Forrest was just saying right there. Sorry, I pointed to the wrong side of the screen. What Forrest was just saying right there. I'm rather proficient in Christian history. I'd really love to talk to people about, that kind of aspect too. So just the whole breadth of topics that are generally covered in the atheist space. Feel free to call in. The number is 512-991-9242. We'd love to hear from you.
Most definitely. We'll jump right in. We'll start with our first theist caller and see where we can go with it. Let's talk to Anson, pronouns he and him, calling in all the way from gerrymandered anuses, who wants to talk about the end times. Anson, you are on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and Godless Engineer. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Yourself? Thank you.
Never had a bad day, man.
I'm good.
All right. Well, I just wanted to first start with, I guess, a preface, just to get it out of the way, make sure. Are you aware, I'm sure you are aware of some of the Christian beliefs when it comes to, well, not all of them, obviously, but some of them in regards to the rapture and, catching away the church, and they believe that, they'll disappear. And I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that belief.
Which Christian belief? Because there's a lot of different denominations of Christianity that all have slightly different flavors of what the rapture would look like. So what are you talking about?
To be honest with you, I don't put myself in a denomination, and I only say that because I'm always learning. And one day I might learn that, oh, hey, this one doesn't seem to fit the doctrine that I read in regards to the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament combination, so kind of that whole thing. I guess I can say the closest I would consider is Baptist, but I mean, there are some beliefs back and forth that I found myself agreeing or disagreeing with. So
righteous. Okay, cool. So we'll go with, I will assume you are taking the new age kind of stance, the very modern stance on the rapture and how it will happen. That there are certain signs and signals that will lead up to it, wars and rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, blah, blah, blah. And where we're waiting for the trumpets to sound, and then, the four horsemen and the whole semi-literalistic reading of Revelation, right?
Yes and no. The only thing I will add to that is I wouldn't necessarily call it modernistic. Even though the belief has been adapted rather recently, it's not that it wasn't there in the past. And the only reason I say that is because, for example, the whole Noah and his ark and all that going on, it has a lot of allusions. And that's one thing I believe that the Bible is pretty clear on, is a lot of repetition that foreshadows forthcoming situations, or whether that be other parts of the Bible or future events that would be considered eschatology. I would say that that's the only thing I wanted to just, my belief add on there.
Do you believe that it is possible for any person to know when the rapture is going to happen? I guess
absolutely not. Question. I do not believe that is, no, that's definitely not.
Okay. That kind of helps nowadays. Clarify. Yeah. That definitely helps clarify.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the biggest point I wanted to say is, I know, and I was speaking with the young lady on the phone previously, that just I was clarifying with her, a lot of atheists believe that, or have the notion that it's been going on for a long time. Every generation says it's the end times, and I completely agree with you in that regard. Every generation says, okay, this is the last generation, and then 300 years go by and nothing happens. So the only thing I wanted to bring up with in that point is that, technically speaking, in regards to the Bible and the description of what the eschatology is, it wasn't technically possible until recently, mainly being 1948 and the rebirth of Israel, considering a lot of the end times prophecies revolve around there being a nation.
So, so hold on. So are you claiming, therefore, are you claiming that Paul was either lying or was wrong about what Jesus told him?
Can you please tell me what you're referring to?
Paul seems to indicate at several points in his epistles that the end, or the Jesus' second coming or whatnot, was going to be coming within his own lifetime. For instance, is First Thessalonians 4, chapter 4, verses 13 through 17, seems to indicate that that Paul himself will be seeing the second coming of Christ, and so basically happening within his own generation, their own generation. And there's several other passages that we could discuss on that, but it seems to me like Paul seemed to indicate that pretty early on the second coming was supposed to come.
Okay. Yes, I don't exactly know the specific passage you're speaking of, but I do know of some passages that refer. Speaking of, surely you will see the Son of Man, or there's some. I don't remember each passage in each verse, but I believe that the interpretation of that, and I'm not saying that. Albert, please, buddy, I'm on the phone. Sorry about that. I'm not saying I believe that there's several interpretations of something. I just believe that there's one, and you have to use other contexts throughout the entire Bible to kind of figure out the best. And that's why I'm always learning. I'm always, learning more things. I don't put myself.
Can I read you another passage?
Yes.
Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 29 through 31. Paul is saying, I mean, brothers and sisters, the appointed time has grown short. From now on, let even those who have wives be as though they have had none. For the present form of this world is passing away, like present tense, like as in his lifetime. So I understand that maybe you haven't read up on these passages, but I feel like your whole idea here that the this eschatological end or whatnot couldn't have come until like 1948 when the state of Israel was defined or whatever. You have to contend with the fact that Paul definitely references this throughout all of his epistles, that it was ending within his lifetime.
Okay, so I think the best way that I have come to understand this is that there are, I guess, two ways to describe the end times. You have the last days and the end times. One last days being a smaller time frame towards the end of what would be called the end times, but the end times themselves. From my understanding and from my study, I believe that would be considered after Jesus's resurrection and the beginning of the New Testament church style, the New Covenant and all that. And the reason I say that is because you have the idea of the end happening at a twinkling of an eye and at an hour which no one knows. So the end times have already begun because it is now possible for the end to come, but sorry, I know. I realize I'm interrupting you kind of a lot, but the thing that you're describing right now sounds like one of those businesses that is constantly going out of business. That in order to create FOMO, that you're going to miss out on some kind of really great deal. But in reality, they're not actually going out of business because they cleverly named their business going out of business or something like that. And so that's what it sounds like to me. Or do you really want to represent your faith as just a constantly FOMOing sort of business that is driven on this idea that you're going out of business quickly, but have been going out of business quickly for 2,000 years? No, because that's kind of where I was saying that I believe the marking of the latter days would be, and that's why when I forget what apostle, whichever one had said, a teacher with the signs of the end times. The things he had mentioned were things that kind of always been going on. Earthquakes have always happened, war, famine, all these things he mentioned have always been happening. And it's just rather an increase in the frequency and intensity, kind of like birth pains, they get more and more. But it's, like I said, not that it's, this is definitely the age and this is the time and all that. I'm just here to argue in my belief that it wasn't quite possible for two scenarios. One, the rebirth of Israel, and that's when the time could, and I'm not saying that it couldn't have happened earlier. Maybe Israel could have been reborn, I guess, or at an earlier time, perhaps. I guess that's kind of depending on human will and all that. But that the specifics of prophecy clearly need, certain circumstances and certain areas that need certain fulfillment without them happening. And I think that the one major one that absolutely had to be fulfilled was 1948. Therefore, thereafter it was plausible to happen. I'm not saying that it's that, even though I do believe that we are in that latter half of end times, I'm not saying that necessarily.
Hold on. So why it feels to me like you're saying that God was powerless until 1948 for him to affect like this end times thing, and that for some reason God is on human timetables, because like Israel becoming a state in 1948, I feel like that's a very human sort of situation there in order for it to come. Like why is God constrained and confined by human actions? It seems like human actions should be constrained and confined by God's actions if he's actually real by, your Bible's description.
Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I don't believe that it's that necessarily that he's restrained by those, rather that the certain things that have to be fulfilled kind of determine on what timetable. Because again, I believe he's outside of time, and that it's kind of something that doesn't matter to him going 1,000 years ahead or whichever direction or whatever. I think it's kind of irrelevant, but that his return isn't necessarily based on, hey, I feel like coming today just because I feel like it. I think it's based on and then the Bible does speak on the type of rampant evil and all that kind of what causes, or rather what determines that he's like, hey, it's time for me to come back, is the state of humanity, which is the will of man. So it would technically be determined by man in the sense of their own position.
State of evil. What are you talking about when you say the state of evil? Like 1948, that was after World War II ended.
Yeah.
And we had stopped evil. We had stopped evil. God didn't do shit to stop that evil. So it kind of seems to me like God slept through the Holocaust and everything, and then he comes in 1948 and he's like, oh, look, yes, now it's time for the end times. And it's like every single year or every single decade or whatnot after that, it's the end times, it's the end is near, and all this other shit. And it's just continuously like, it's still, regardless of whether you start the clock in 1948 or when Paul thought, which you still haven't answered my question about whether Paul was lying or whether he was mistaken. But whenever you want to start the clock, you're still running out this whole FOMO thing of a going out of business sale for Christianity. And I just, at this point, it's really falling on deaf ears.
Okay, so go back to the earlier question. I guess I maybe not answered it clearly. I believe that Paul himself may have personally believed that it was his time, or that it was literal, or maybe that he would be the end would come during his lifetime, generation, whatever it may be. I do believe it's very possible that's what he personally believed, but that he might have been misunderstood, though, even though he did that. Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
No. So I mean, but the fact is that Paul only got his information from the revelatory Jesus. He received revelation from the celestial Jesus that taught him these things. So he wasn't preaching anything like when he was preaching something that was his personal opinion. He made sure to preface it with the fact that it was his personal opinion. He does this several times, and I could look up the exact quotes if you need me to. But when he's talking about in general, the theology of Christianity and all that kind of stuff, I mean, he's talking about information he directly received from Jesus. So I guess my question right now is: have you received new personal revelation from Jesus that seemed to indicate that 1948 was the tipping point for this FOMO action?
No, I guess I wouldn't call it a revelation, simply using the context of the Bible as a whole. Because whenever, let's say during the time of Peter, Paul, the apostles, there wasn't actually a Bible. They had the Torah, and then they had various books that the Jews had kept, and that eventually was compiled into the Old Testament, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, but I need you to understand something. Anson. Look, it's about Paul having personal revelation from this celestial figure that you probably agree is a real celestial figure. I don't think that it's a real celestial figure, but Paul seems to think that he was getting real messages from this celestial figure directly. So it's either you think that Paul was lying, or he was just simply mistaken about it. Well, I'm just kind of curious which one you think it is.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I believe he was mistaken, because not necessarily that, because the weird thing that I agree I don't understand, but I have definitely seen, is that whenever Jesus speaks, whenever his words are recorded, a lot of what he says can be really hard to understand, and it goes a bunch of different ways, and I believe that the reason for that is because he had a really great understanding, obviously, of the Old Testament. So anytime he would say something, a lot of times he would actually reference Old Testament, or kind of have like a juxtaposition of the current situation that he was speaking on and the Old Testament events and all that. So I think that, for example, Paul, whenever he heard it, initially wrote it down, later became his epistles, all that. He may not have 100% understood it because he didn't, look at this and then go and look at the example I gave you in regards to the rapture kind of being
what evidence do you have that Paul was actually wrong, though?
Can you rephrase that, please?
What evidence do you have that Paul was actually wrong versus you just having a different opinion?
I just believe that when you're using other portions of the Bible, it leans towards the. Well, are you talking about on his? You're talking about his. The situation occurring on his lifetime, right? That he was wrong about.
I mean, I'm talking about Paul's actual understanding of what his message was from Jesus, who spoke to him, or at least he received messages to him, or from Jesus. It seems to me like it was if Paul got that wrong or misunderstood that, then what else could Paul have gotten wrong, kind of thing. So I'm kind of curious as to, other than just your opinion about, when the eschatological end is supposed to come, other than that, what evidence do you have to suggest that Paul was wrong about when the end times was supposed to occur?
Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm answering this incorrectly in regards to what you're trying to ask, but I believe that it's a big thing on context, because whenever you're not just context, Christians are, read context. I mean, a lot of the documents that are recorded and epistles and all that's been compiled, they have, I guess you can say, several layers that you can kind of look into and see, okay, well, this actually could be referencing, this Old Testament situation, and you can kind of look at that. And I believe that, let's say, when he was writing it down, for example, he might have been like, oh, so that could be happening during my lifetime, and he could write that down and everything. But there could be another layer that he maybe didn't see because of, he didn't have the ability at that time to compile all of what was written then, later, and before, to kind of understand the time frame based on a lot of the works, because that eschatology is kind of seeded throughout the Old and New Testament.
The one thing I'm not hearing there is any tangible evidence that would definitely say that you're right more so than Paul. Now, let me ask you this. How do you get around the fact that the book of Revelation, which I'm sure plays into your eschatological theology here, is written to describe, or more in a description or a response to this circumstances of Roman imperial rule over the Christians in the 2nd century? It seems more in line with what they were dealing with then to describe that particular strife that they were going through, as opposed to any kind of real end time sort of idea.
Okay, so to be honest with you, in regards to that time and what it could be referring to, I don't have the knowledge or information to answer that honestly, but definitely something that I can look into. So I don't really have a great answer for you in that regard now.
Okay, so it seems to me, and I know that I'm kind of dominating this a little bit there, Forrest. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I'm waiting for you because you're cooking, and I have a completely different set of questions. So I'm letting you do your thing first.
Okay. Okay. It just seems to me like you have a different opinion that's not based on any kind of evidence whatsoever, that you're just taking the fact that Israel was established as a state in 1948 to suggest some kind of eschatology could only have happened at that point or come to fruition at that point. But you don't really have any solid evidence to say that, only like your personal interpretations of a collective of different materials that are fictional creations from the 2nd century to describe the Christian strife against Roman imperial rule. And I just don't see how that actually gives us any kind of real inclination as to whether or not this end times thing is a real thing, for one, for two, when we should expect the end times to occur, and three, how the state of Israel being established by human authorities is some kind of indication of some great evil coming about.
Hey, bud. Okay, bud, go away real quick, just for a moment, all right? Sorry about that. Yeah, so I guess the evidence, I guess if this is what you're asking for specifically in regards to Israel being a nation having to be a prerequisite of the end times and eschatology, is the way where I get that from is various parts, and I hate to say that I can't not quote verbatim or the verses, but there are verses that speak of there. First off, Israel being it being the center of the strife towards the end of the age. And I just find it interesting that Israel has been one of the, centerpieces of war for this last century, nearly at least, ever since its formation in 48. But along with the necessity of that being a state or its sovereign nation in regards to fulfill the prophecies or predictions or whatever you want to call it of the end time scenario. And then I guess real quick, since we've been discussing this topic for a minute, and I'd hate to waste your time on the whole thing, the second thing I guess I want to get to on that same point is a lot of the things that are described in the end times, and mainly I believe the New Testament, wasn't necessarily possible until modern technology in regards to nuclear arsenal and everything. Like, for example, Damascus and Isaiah 7, I believe, being destroyed in a ruinous heap in an hour. That's not something that was actually possible until, this last couple decades. Those are just the reasons I believe that we are approaching that.
Sorry. I mean, I feel like the meteor that took out like a majority of the dinosaurs would like to have a word with you about that, because I feel like at any point God could have flung a holy meteor or comet or something Earth's way and would have been able to do more destruction than a nuclear arsenal could have. And I think that would have been more indicative of God's ways, acting through natural means and whatnot. But I'm done cooking on this, I guess, and I'm going to let Forrest sort of ask his questions.
Right. Thank you to Nightbot, our automatic chat mod, for encouraging people to tune into the next Atheist Experience with me and Godless Engineer. I just noticed that. I have a totally different series of questions really quickly. And it's mainly just about like what Israel is, because the whole premise here, I understand, is that in 1948, the state of Israel was established, and that was the prerequisite necessary condition for then, the rapture to be happening. We're now in this phase of things. Well,
can I correct something real quick? I'm sorry. Not necessarily the rapture, but the end times itself, because of the end times, the Israel being a nation is part of that prophetic situation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. I would say so. In order for the end times to happen, one of the things that had to also have happened is that Israel became a state, and like that bothers the shit out of me for a lot of reasons. Do you think that the prophecy is guided by your God? That your God has some sort of power? Obviously it has some sort of foresight to know what's going to happen in the future, but like, do you think that God has any kind of guiding hand in this?
I do. I don't.
Okay.
I believe that human hands drive are the primary drive of it because of the descent, that the path that we're taking. But ultimately, his hand is guiding throughout. Yes.
I guess the clarifying question, just to make sure, is do you think that the power of the prophecy and the will of God had more to do with Israel being established when it was and where it was? Or do you think that had more to do with political leaders in the United States and the UK who were Christian and had a majority Christian population doing what they thought they should do as Christians?
The latter. I would say that first and foremost, because kind of going back to what I was saying earlier is I believe that the end time scenario is ultimately caused by human, choice. And part of that is the culmination of the kind of things that kind of are necessary that ultimately man has decided to do. Yes.
Right. The reason I ask is because, like, is it possible that, like, there was rather than saying this was a part of the end times thing, it would be more appropriate to just say some Christians who believed in Christianity did what they thought the end times would look like, and now it fits the narrative better because that's what Christians who also believe the same things you do forced into existence.
I would say that is quite possible, and again, kind of going back to y'all's belief, and I cannot completely understand how you can look at it and go, that's just self-fulfilling prophecy, of course. But the kind of the I guess the end point of this whole conversation that I was hoping to get to, just for the sake of our times, I was kind of wanting to lead this up into your opinion on, and it's kind of a weird tangent, but I'll get right back around to it for this reason. Your opinion on extraterrestrial life.
I'm not going to change topics that. Yeah, I'm not going to change topics that hard. I'm still on this one.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Basically what I'm stuck on here is you said that this, the creation of the state of Israel was necessary, and John mentioned earlier where that came from, and that's kind of where I've been this whole time, is that, like, the reason it wasn't that all the Christians in the world got together and decided, hey, it'd be great is if we help the rapture happen, the end times happen a little bit more, so we're all going to get together and we're going to make this state of Israel. No, there was the fucking Holocaust. And then the world leaders got together and decided, hey, here's this chunk of land and these indigenous people don't really seem to need it, so we're going to carve that up and make it a nation state and force it into existence. And now there's going to be this religious ethno state that exists here. And after decades of colonization, apartheid, and genocide, now we're going to have, the end times will be. And, like, I don't get personally why this almighty creator of the universe and his superpowers and foresight and all these things requires Nazis to happen, millions of people to die, and then different ethnic cleansing and different genocide to happen, so that through colonization, bloodshed, and geopolitics, he can eventually fulfill the prophecy that he himself made so that he can return and the state of humanity is in the right state. Like, that just seems wildly fucking convoluted and dumb. And if he was really a good god or any of that shit, maybe he could just show the fuck up and do good things and doesn't need all of this nonsense. Why is geopolitics more important than just divinity? Like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand the point of the entire thing, Anson. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Well,
if I hold on, Anson, I do want to point out here that the genocide that the state of Israel seems to be committing on Palestine right now follows perfectly in line with, like, 1 Samuel 15:1-3, as well as the other guidance that Yahweh has given, in the Hebrew Bible as to how the Israelites are to do war with people of other faiths.
So much so that if I don't remember the name of them, there was that one Israeli politician who actually used Amalek as an example of what exactly they're doing in Gaza at this moment. And so, like, I'm just saying, like, why? That's my whole question: is why the hell, if this is this great prophecy of the greatest creature in the universe, why are Nazis a necessary part of God's plan? Why is genocide a necessary part of God's plan? Why is any of this a necessary part of God's plan? If the point is to, as you said earlier, to get humanity to a better state for God to come, that sounds like a fucking horrific way to get to where they're going.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I don't think that the requirement is to get to a better state. I think the whole point is to essentially because we've been our own devices have brought us to this point. It's kind of humanity's direction that we are going at this moment. And I'm not saying that we have to get to a good state for that to come back. It's rather the opposite, where this bad thing's happening. And I just want to point out, I disagree with Israel's and Palestine's side.
Right. I know. Hold on.
Palestine's side. What is Palestine's side? Anson? existing
to live?
I
disagree with both the policies of both, that there's good and evil on both sides.
Do you think the evil on both sides is comparable?
No.
Okay, great. Because dude, a guy kicking the shit out of a puppy. Maybe that puppy stepped on a leaf too hard one time, and that was evil. But holy fuck, dude.
No. I just want to make it clear. I do not agree with Israel's actions nor Palestine's actions.
So what are Palestine's actions? It sounds like you're saying we're all sinful, so we all deserve hell, as the whole everyone's evil, everyone's wrong, that kind of thing, which in the context of this is fucking weird, but it still just doesn't. I would just love the answer to the question of why is all of this necessary for God's plan? That's the main question I have.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I was saying in regards to, it's not that, when you're looking at the state of the world, whenever he returns, just in that regard, it's going to be horrible. And that the reason he's returning is because it's horrible. So it's not that it's, I want it to be this way, therefore I can come back. It's because it's this way, therefore I must come back. That's the point. It's not necessarily that he wants it that way in order to do it.
Anson, I do want to point something out to you that the reason why I brought up earlier that Israel is committing a genocide in line with how Yahweh has dictated that Israel go to war is that you disagreeing with Israel's tactics and actions here is disagreeing with how Yahweh has dictated they do war. So you saying that all of this is commentary or the state of evil in the world, and so that's why now is the eschatological end for Christianity, that doesn't make sense when that is exactly what how Yahweh wants them to do war with people. So that's an expectation of God at this point. You're essentially disagreeing with God, and in order to fall more in line with God and his the way God dictates war to be done, you would only have to disagree with the Palestinians wanting to retain their lives or to continue to exist, because God wants everybody but his own chosen people to be eradicated or people assimilated into his chosen people. So the only way that this makes sense is if you agree with Israel at this point.
So when it comes to the Old Testament and the New Testament, where you have the Old Testament, where it seems like you can look at Old and New and say, hey, those are two different gods. Most people will come up to that conclusion because of the drastic difference in the way for example, Jesus, he speaks saying, hey, forgive somebody 70 times 7. And then, of course, if they slap, you turn around. But then in the Old Testament, you look at it and it's real harsh and bloody and just really hard to swallow a lot of the content. And I think the reason that there's a hard, well, not necessarily, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know why there's that hard shift, but I believe that the change of the covenant, of the New Testament has pretty much made it to where, for example, those brutal, actions and everything are not permissible. And I'm not.
Where does he say that?
I don't really know how to. I'm sorry.
So In
Sorry.
so in 1 Samuel 15:3, go attack the Amalekites, totally destroy all that belongs to them, do not spare them, put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. That's precisely, to their credit, that's precisely what Israel is doing in Gaza. And that is why I found out it was fucking Netanyahu. Surprised I didn't remember that it was him who said that that's exactly what they're doing back in 2023. I raised a lot of alarm bells then, and sure enough, 2 years later, look where we're at. So where exactly in the Bible does God say, never mind, stop doing things that way? That's no longer how I want you to do war.
So the way my understanding of it is obviously that the punishment of sin is death. The punishment for everyone of sin, and that includes the Israelites, that includes their enemies. You know, death is the punishment for that. Now, when you look at it from God's chosen people kind of thing, I don't believe that the Israelites themselves are excluded from that punishment. It's simply I guess you can say a mode or method of which God uses, I guess, what was it? What word I'm looking for? The car to which God uses to show, you know, hey, this is what evil is, you know, it has to be eradicated because that's the punishment. And then in the New Testament, because the idea of an Israelite and God's chosen people has been changed from, only Israelites, the God's chosen people, it's become anyone is God's chosen people whom they come to Jesus. So it's not that the law's changed, it's that the perspective has changed is the best way I guess I can put it. So
yeah, but nowhere does Jesus say
evil.
nowhere does Jesus say don't go to war like I previously told you to. Like he never renounces his commands for how wars to be done or anything like that. So, I mean, I feel like the vagueness of Jesus in these particular points is a knock against you here, because obviously Jesus, reaffirms the laws of Moses as to what constitutes sin when he says not a jot or tittle will disappear from the law until the new heaven and new earth come. So it's very obvious that the Old Testament still applies. What is considered sin still applies. The main thing that is sin is disobeying God, and God is mandated for you to do war in one kind of way, and that's 1 Samuel 15, 1-3.
Mm-hmm. So
where's the logic broken that I just rattled off to you as far as whether or not Israel is going against God?
I honestly couldn't tell you with scriptural evidence. So I can definitely, give me a second, make a note, because I do.
Can I just make sure I heard you properly? Also, you were saying, I asked you why these events were necessary, and you said they're not necessary as events by themselves. It's that God wants to. How did you phrase it exactly? I don't want to straw man you here. You said that these things aren't forcing God to come back. It's that when all these evil things happen, then God will need to come back and set things straight. And so he's waiting for things to get bad enough. And so the prophecy isn't this happens that then allows me to come back. It's that this happens, which forces me, requires me to come back to fix things. Is that fair enough, what you said?
It's pretty close, but I would say it's not that it's being forced. It's that the reason he comes back, because it's gotten so bad. So the reason it takes so long, first off, according to the Bible, the reason he's taking so long is so that he could save as many as possible. But when it gets to the
for all the children and all the victims of the Holocaust and all them.
So saving it, that he's not talking about life. He's talking about salvation. So people dying, that's always going to happen. That's just the nature of humanity. We die.
So he's waiting for enough people to be born, so the global population is big enough that he can have enough souls to save.
Not born. I mean, to be honest with you, I think whenever an abortion occurs, I think that those souls go straight to heaven. But that's kind of just a tangent.
So you're pro-abortion then? That's good.
Anyway, so when it comes to the state of the world getting to a point, it's that hey, it's to a point that it's so full of evil. Because you look back, and that's kind of what I say about foreshadows. When you look back at Sodom and Gomorrah, he said, hey, go, there's 10 people there. Or actually, he starts with like 50. Hey, if you can find 50 people, I'll go and save the city. No, not 50. Cool, go to 30. No, 30. Can you find 10 people and it's just your family? Then that's kind of the same foreshadowing of the end times when it comes to the timing. It's really dependent upon the heart of the people. And the same thing with Moses. Moses' family was the only one that was saved for the flood, and the door was shut, and then people came back at the end of the night, like, oh, hey, let me in. It's kind of the same setup in both regards.
Right. So I'm sorry. That was a lot just to get to where we are now, where it's like, we're in the exact same place where best case scenario, God is just watching these things happen indifferently and knows that it's not going to matter anyway in the end, and is just waiting for the right time when he can make the grandest of entrances. And it's just this diva moment. And the worst case scenario is this is all part of the plan. This is all a good thing. This is something that we should all be excited about because it means we're bringing us closer to the end times.
So I believe the first scenario is more accurate, but instead of him standing off and going, hey, let me let people do what they want, I believe, like I said at the beginning of the call, that he does have a hand that he guides and helps, direct, even though man themselves make the ultimate decisions in regards to, oh, well, do we want to blow up this country? Yeah, sure, we'll blow it up. That's man's decision. But God does work within these scenarios. And I guess one of the points that I can make in regards to that is, for example, in Nigeria with the horrible, and it's not just Nigeria, it's all over the world. You have just people killing for no reason, just because they feel like it. Good people, or people you might consider good, people you might consider bad. I believe that there's just needless death, and I believe that in those scenarios, he uses the bad to have good, and that's why you have some. And again, it's not necessarily fact. It's kind of more just story that's just hearsay and everything, but you have some story.
What's the good that we got out of the Holocaust?
I'm not saying. So I believe the good would be those. So the perseverance of the faith that then later turned. You can hear stories of people going who were Nazis and who were the people murdering and killing and everything. The horrible people who did that, who had later come to the repentance of that. And the good was that both the people that were involved, that were the oppressors, and the people who were victims, both sides had scenarios of people coming to both repentance of their actions and turning to the right way. So it's not that it all was good. It's that there was good that came of it.
Was that good worth it? Was the fact that a few Nazis said "Sawi," was that worth it?
I honestly can't say with certainty one way or the other. I will say that
is it at all even remotely possible that it's worth it? Yes.
Because I believe, and just to go off that, and then you can respond. The reason I believe that is that, let's say, and then there's scripture to back it up.
I'm at this point. We are now at the Holocaust was worth it, and I don't know why we're continuing. That's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like I tried to get there earlier. We started with, my questions were, why was the Holocaust, and then the forced creation of Israel, and then the establishment of an apartheid state, and then ethnic cleansing, genocide, colonization. Following that, why are these things a necessary part of this? And you said, oh, they're not. They're not necessary. That's just the state of the world. That's humans being evil. And I was, for a minute, I was like, okay, maybe he's going to turn this around. And now we're at the Holocaust was worth it because somebody had some feelings afterwards, and those were good feelings. And like, I don't see the point in continuing to discuss anything with you after that. That's you should be ashamed of that. Fuck your God. If your God thinks that this was worth it, fuck your God.
So as a last point, and we can end the conversation if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you make a last point. And I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? I thought for sure when I brought up like, hey, like, why are geopolitics more important than, or like more influential than your God's almighty power? I thought for sure that would be something that we could agree is silly, but you rolled with it. And now we're at this point, and I'm not going to do it. The genocide is wrong, and there's nothing that we can be like, but at least, you know, somebody learned something from it. This one, after this dude killed a few million people, it opened his heart, and that's what Jesus wanted. Like, we're not doing that. Anyway, if you have anything left for Anson, John, you're welcome to, but I think
it's rather crazy to state that the Holocaust was necessary just so that some people could come to Christ. I mean, not only does that just simply not make any kind of sense for an omnibenevolent God, but also what you're claiming is that these people that did horrible things in the moment, I guess, torturing people, killing people, and all this other stuff. As long as they just said, I'm sorry, and they believe in Jesus and everything like that, they get to go to an eternal paradise afterwards and gets accepted by God. Like, I don't know. I feel like that is a total lack of justice, which I know a lot of Christians out there like to promote Christianity is like the only time when justice is served. But it kind of seems to me like the morals of a person don't really matter to that kind of God. If that kind of God just wants worship, then it really doesn't matter if you're, the shittiest human being to ever live, obviously. You can still go to heaven as long as you bow down and, praise that God.
Yep. That's what gets me is it's the whole thing like where you talk about, well, the individual human life and all this stuff and all the suffering here on this planet, it doesn't really matter because there's eternity on the line. And at the end of the day, God's love is eternal. And so whatever happens here, it's nothing compared to that. And you get into that same ridiculous, it's like divine command theory, but like backloaded, where it's like, if you're good and if you're the most evil, horrific, fucking murderer, puppy kicking asshole just in the whole world, this piece of shit who's just been raised, his first word was the N-word and it's never gotten any better, right? Just this evil person just has to come to Jesus and then he gets to go to heaven with Hitler and me. And it's like, fuck off. Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about what's worth it when we're talking about the loss of millions of lives and followed by the loss of millions more. It's just not... It's not appropriate and it's not worth anybody's time and it's not worth taking seriously. And it's been fucking 42 really fucking boring minutes just to get to this point. And I'm just, none of this goes any farther than Anson's own personal opinions. None of this goes any further than just like what this dude thinks because of what he's read, because of what he imagines, because of what he prefers, because of what aligns with his personal morality and whatever like that. It's just not worth continuing on. So with that, lines are back open for anybody else who wants to call in. Once again, 512-991-9242, or use the web link in the bottom of the description. That goes out, including to the person in the chat who's been here trolling for a long time, talking about how lost we are and wants us to call into their show, which I checked. Nobody's calling in there. So you have now a show that gets lots and lots of views on a channel with like 400,000 subs. This is your chance. Pick up that phone. Set us straight. Tell us what's up. 512-991-9242, including the people who always live in our comment sections and tell us how wrong we are about God, about sex and gender, about evolution, about the age of the earth, about Christianity, about how we're not following the right version of Christianity, how we're taking the Bible out of context. Save us, theists. Save our souls and all the people who listen to us. This is your chance. Throw us that life preserver. That's why he's called the Savior, right? Pick up that phone. Make me less bored. 512-991-9242.
Yeah, and I will note that per the poll that's up right now, there's at least 12 whole individuals in the chat that think that Christianity is not a cult. And I think it continues to be a cult today.
That's, it says 9%, and I can only imagine that's 9% of the entire world because that's who watches this show. So like that's 8 billion people times 0.09. That's at least 720 million people that should be calling in right now to tell us about Christianity. And like we're here to take your calls. Until then, we'll just sit here and wait, because we had a couple of atheist callers that I guess got tired of waiting. So in the meantime, let's read super chats, because we have plenty of them. Let's see here. Where are our super chats? There they are. They're in this tab that I keep forgetting exists. We've got, of course, $10 from our beautiful Blind Limey, who says, two of my favorite blokes. Anyone stepping up this evening is either brave or foolish. It turns out they recognize that we've won the war, because we don't have a Christian caller right now. Oh, and did I tell you about the anime horse girls laughs in British? Don't make me think about laughing in British. And also, what the fuck, Jamie, is that? And just so many things. Oh, man. And then we've also got Afrostorian sent $5 as well. Forrest, did you see the paper on early Devonian lichen? Neat. So many exciting implications for the colonization of land in deep time. I don't know what paper you're talking about. I'm going to look it up right now. Early Devonian lichen. Here I've got a paper. I've got Sci News 3 days ago. This must be what we were talking about. Let's see if it actually links whatever study they're talking about. So I don't know what this is. Here we go. Rise of lichens and colonization. Here I've got Bruno Becker Kerber et al. 2025. So this is a very new one. Let's pop over to scholar.google and type that in and see what we come up with. Hey, and they've got the full PDF available for free. That's what I'm talking about. The origin of terrestrial life and ecosystems fundamentally changed the biosphere. Lichens, symbiotic fungi, algae partnership are crucial to nutrient cycling and carbon fixation today, yet their evolutionary history during the evolution of terrestrial ecosystems remains unclear. To the scarce fossil record, we demonstrate that the enigmatic, the eyes in this paper are really weird. It looks like L's. The enigmatic Devonian fossil spongy phyton from Brazil captures one of the earliest and most widespread records of lichens. Fuck yes. Early lichens, y'all. The presence of internal hyphen networks, algal cells, possible reproductive structures, calcium oxalate pseudomorphs, and abundant nitrogenous compounds and fossil lipid composition. What is that? Confirms that it was among the first widespread representatives of lichenized fungi in Earth's history. Tight. Lichens are cool as shit. And what's really cool about it is like that what they're talking about here is really important. Fungi were the first things, some of the first things to colonize the land, which then allowed land plants to happen, which then allowed, land animals to happen, starting with insects, which evolved from marine arthropods, and then eventually getting into tetrapods and whatnot. So like, what a cool thing that fills in some gaps that we didn't know and like helps elucidate a situation hundreds of millions of years ago, all talking about some of my favorite little creatures, lichens. They're awesome. Well, that's very cool. What a neat situation. 400 million year old fucking fungus doing stuff.
There are some comments that we could react to, and I'm wondering if we can go to the fifth comment that we've got on our list there. It says, why do all of you need to have pronouns in your bios? I feel like it should be pretty obvious. One thing, at least growing up in the South here, I've fallen prey to misgendering somebody just because of how their voice sounded to me. And so us using pronouns in our bios not only normalizes the trans community and normalizes requesting pronouns of people, or at least addressing the pronouns of people, their preferred pronouns. And so it's all about just normalization of being respectful to your fellow human, for one. And for two, I feel like people shouldn't just make generalizations or broad generalizations about somebody just because of how they perceive them. And so like putting pronouns in bios and identifying pronouns in general is just I feel like it's a very important thing.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me is like there was a time when if you labeled your pronouns, you were basically immediately outing yourself as trans. And now that's not a thing anymore. Now, as we normalize this practice, number one, like John said, is kind of getting people out of this whole like, well, whatever it looks like kind of thing. It also kind of helps protect the trans community. I've been misgendered plenty of times in my life. When I was in middle school and junior high, I used to have hair halfway down my back, and I'm not a burly guy, you know what I mean? So I was this little scrawny kid with long hair, and people thought I was a girl a lot of times. It didn't really bother me, but I can't imagine if I was actually having dysphoria, how that would have been a problem consistently. And so like, yeah, just it kind of avoids that. What I think is more important also is that like it helps to like elucidate for people and remind them that this is a social construct anyway. Gender and sex are different things. Gender is a social thing, and it kind of gets people into the vibe of not being so perplexed and shocked whenever they hear, you know, a pronoun being uttered, or at least they, them, like just understanding that that's a thing. Because for some unbelievable reason, there are still a lot of people out there that think that they and them are necessary plural, which literally you actually have to try not thinking. Like you have to actively not be thinking to get, but like for some reason in the year of our dark lord 2025, we still have this issue with people still hung up on that. So like having that kind of thing is just really, really useful, and having this just be put in people's faces a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more to remind them that social change is already here and it's for the best. And it's not anti-science, it's backed by science. It's been around for at least 100 years, the science behind all this. I get comments every day like, oh, you call yourself a biologist, you have pronouns in your bio. It's like, yes, because I understand biology, I have pronouns in my bio. Like that's not hard. It's like saying you call yourself a biologist and you believe in evolution. Well, yeah, duh. It's because I understand how science works. So like, yeah, it's a good thing all around. Another one that I would love to read is number 3 on our list there. Speaking of evolution. Oh, so humans and animals and humans are different. We have a whole, I love the music that comes up with this, the sad music that comes along with these. Humans and animals are different. We have a whole set of values. Interesting. So evolution is a lie. What? just what is that? It's crazy to me that like we were talking at the time, it has the context here, that at the time we were talking about how like comparing humans to wolves doesn't make sense because there's a lot of dudes that want to call themselves alphas. And I was explaining that like that's not a real thing in wolves anyway, but also especially humans comparing themselves to other animals is different. And this person's saying, yes, humans or animals are different. So evolution is like, surprise, fish and snakes are different. Every kind of, you could look to any 2 types of life form and call them different. You can even use the creationist method and call them kinds. They're different. That's how evolution works, is that differences arise. Like, do you know the definition of evolution, my brother in not Christ? It's any change in the heritable characteristics of a population over the course of multiple generations. The word change is in the definition. What are we doing? What is this? It's just the laziest. I saw that one on the freaking list, and it's just the laziest possible thinking. Things are different. Things can't be different. Science isn't. What? Last things, and then we'll move on to another call. We've got these quick announcements. If you like what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Giving to Patreon ensures our ability to make more cool stuff. You can sign up at tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. Another way to support is by sending super chats. We already read 2 of those. You can also become a channel member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button down below the video to sign up for that. You get special chat emojis and access to YouTube shorts and clips. And finally, a big thank you to our crew. We do love our crew. They're amazing people. They make this show a reality. We've got producers and call screeners and people in the background making sure that things aren't incredibly stupid, and we love them for that. It's very, very cool. I would like to take this next call, but I want to wait for just a second because we have someone on the call screen right now that I really, really want to talk. Usually I'm talking, so I'm just waiting just in case that means what I think it means. I want to take that call. So I'm going to keep bullshitting for just a minute while Tina finishes up screening that call. And we're just going to wait for just a second, and everyone's going to have to be patient. In the meantime, John, tell me more about why Christianity is bad so we don't waste time too much here.
I've been running with this one prompt over there on the TikTok about how Christianity does more harm than good, and I think that with that comes just the admission that Christianity is responsible for a lot of the misogyny that we have in our society. A lot of the anti-LGBTQ stuff is run all throughout our society, and it looks like we got our caller. Do you want to?
All right,
hit
let's
him
talk
up?
to Jason. Jason, pronouns he, him, calling in from misanthropic orangutans who wants to talk about the use of pronouns. Jason, you're on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
It's a good day.
It's a great day.
Yeah.
What were you calling to talk about? Because the reason why I waited for a second is because the call screen that Tina was filling in, it just said pronouns and that was it. And I wanted to know if we were going to talk about it.
Oh, sure. I'm an English teacher, and
Okay.
I was wanting to discuss the use of pronouns in education. From my perspective as a teacher, there is a grammatical structure that is broken with alternatives. And I see the history as supporting leaving it the way it is and using pronouns that are like one or us in the stead of the they, them construction. I was wondering what you thought of that, because I've thought about it for a long time.
Well, as an English teacher, you surely, they, them are also singular pronouns, right? They can be singular or plural. They've been used singularly since the 1300s. So, what's the issue with doing that?
The issue with doing that is that, as happened 120 years ago when this was a thing again, is that it breaks person and number and it creates confusion.
When does it create confusion? If I tell you right now that someone just rang my doorbell, what pronouns would I use? I would say I'm going to go see what they want. I'm going to go talk to them. And I hope that they are a nice person. I don't need to enforce I hope that he or she, you know what I mean? That doesn't really work.
Well, sure it works. In fact, I would say that both constructions work. But I would also say that the history of he and she supports the same usage that you have for they. So that if I say he, when I'm speaking to someone who's in front of me, say, and that person presents as male, and by the way, I understand that presentation is not an indication and that trans people are people. That's not my issue. My issue is entirely grammatical and not political. And it frustrates me because I don't feel like I can ethically teach a thing that I perceive to be as a broken construction.
So hold on. Let me, Jason. Let me ask you this: If I get not realizing somebody would go by they them because you don't realize that they're not that they don't adhere to the gender binary that you seem to want to, but once they tell you, hey, I go by they them, that's how I want to be referred to, are you saying that you're going to just deny that and continue to misgender them? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. And I am not adhering to a gender binary. I am saying that we have pronouns in standard English that already serve the function that is desired by those who would want alternative who would want to use alternative pronouns. Therefore,
for which they them are part of that set.
We don't need to create new ones. Now, I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
We're not creating new ones. They them's not new. Am I misunderstanding something here?
I'll be more specific. A new usage. I have no.
They're not new. It's not using the new.
That's not a new usage. It's been around. Literally, Shakespeare uses singular they.
Well, I understand. I also know that when people create alternative sets, there's a jure out there. I think I'm pronouncing that properly.
Those are neopronouns, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what? That was interesting.
Those are neo pronouns. Yeah, Zim and J and all
neo.
those things. They
Thank
are
you.
new ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite have a name for those, so that's great. See, all I'm saying is that I can't see why I need to adopt this new construction when the old construction, one, us, we, already works. And I know that
Okay,
we've already
okay,
So
so-
hold on.
that it goes back
Wait,
centuries.
just to be clear, you're saying one, us, and we are the ones that you think are preferable here. So just to be clear, when is we used as a singular pronoun?
Well, I would say we is used when we talk about ourselves as part of a larger group. So, as I've heard people in the various shows refer to themselves when they speak of the scientific community, we think that
Sure.
the Earth is not 6,000 years old, something like that.
But that is still, when we talk about the scientific community, that is still a group of people. I'm asking, like, if I was to talk to John, and John is non-binary, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm talking about John, and you don't want me to use they. So I can't say they asked you a question. You want me to refer to John as we and us, and you think that's going to be less confusing?
No, I think that in order for someone to encompass what they like to express about their gender or their nature, that might be some sort of plurality or something in between a binary construction, that we works in a lovely way, and that person could use we and it would work wonderfully. And it would, and we
as
Jason,
a royal
as
we,
teachers,
sure,
for
but like
instance,
I
would do that, and
as-
I do, and I
sorry.
would use that in reference to
J-
me.
You're
Jason,
talking about using the royal we as a common parlance thing that has no third party usage or third person usage that I know of in this way. Or that I can think of. Maybe there's an obvious one that I'm not paying attention to right now, but like there's no third person usage of we and us that I can think of off the top of my head, except for them. And so like it just doesn't really line up. And at the end of the day, you're suggesting something that I would argue is far more confusing and not culturally relevant enough in order to replace something that is already culturally useful. Like, surely you can agree, Jason, all language is made up. All language is a cultural construction. All language is something that changes and adapts over time. All we're arguing for here is just using words the way that they have been used for a long time in a slightly new way to reinforce the understanding of something else that is also culturally constructed, being gender.
And now,
and I also,
yes,
Jason,
I
I
would
also
agree
want
with
to,
that.
I want to go back. Hold on. I want to go back to my original question here, in that if somebody identifies as non-binary and they request that you say they, them, that you're not sitting there saying that you're going to refuse to do that. This entire conversation is justifying you refusing to not call them they, them, like they ask you to. It just makes you come off like a lying bigot at that point.
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is that, I mean, I have been someone who has supported the LGBT community, and I'm part of it for 35 years. And I'm not biased against a single soul. What I'm trying to say.
Okay, Jason.
He didn't say
Jason.
you were biased. He said that when you refuse to use someone's preferred pronoun, it makes you come across that way.
That I think that if someone comes to me to answer your question and says, I would like to be used as they, them, and I'm sorry to talk over you, Forrest, but I would say, what's your name? I get a name, and I would refer to them by their name, because I don't want to use that construction. And so my choices need to be respected as well. And so I would use their name. So,
Just so.
Oh my God!
just so
Are you
selfish.
serious? Yeah, are you seriously saying like it's too much to ask me to use just different pronouns for another person because I disagree with this thing? Like I'm like, I get it. You want me to use they, them. Fuck that. I'm just going to use your name the entire time, which it incredibly convolutes the conversation.
So much more clunky. That's so much more difficult to do.
I'm sorry, Godless Engineer, your actual name is escaping me at the moment. I'm sorry that it's difficult for you. I just am saying I think the standard is fine, and we don't need to make a change.
And again,
John,
you're wanting
Jason.
to force other people to follow your particular paradigm in this particular respect. When somebody asks you to use they, them pronouns for them, you're sitting there and saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to use your name every single fucking time. And that just makes you come across as a transphobic, or not transphobic, but just a bigot.
A queerphobic in this case.
Queerphobic. Queerphobic.
Yeah, that's
bigot.
the thing, Jason. No one's saying you are transphobic or anything. We're saying it sounds awfully that, and it makes you look that way. If you like, first of all, it's not changing the paradigm. The paradigm is that they, them pronouns can be either singular or plural. Everybody uses singular they all the fucking time. And like, that's why I was saying earlier, when I said before you called that you have to go out of your way not to think, because you have to go out of your way to never recall a single time when, somebody left a package at my door. I wonder what they left it there for. People say that shit all the fucking time. You never say, I wonder what one left it there for. I wonder what we left it there for. You would never do that. That's ridiculous. And you certainly wouldn't go hunt down the person to find their name so that you could then say, I wonder what Joe David left this package for. It's just a stupid thing to do. And what John's telling you is that, like, it is so much more difficult to try to keep someone's name in your mind so you can say, he said this and she said that and Jasmine said that too. It's just pointlessly complicated when you could just use a word that everybody already uses all the time and has for hundreds of years.
But they haven't used it for hundreds of years. It's gone out.
Yes, they have.
And it's come back. I'm sorry if you don't understand that. That is
No. Oh my God, the condescension.
All the time. You may be an English teacher, but I remember taking English classes, and I remember my whole life I've used they as a singular pronoun all the time. I've done it frequently. I've done it today.
Is that it breaks person and number? When
No, it doesn't.
No. Okay,
No,
Jason, what you're telling us here today is that it puts more of work on you because you have a different understanding of, I guess, the usage of words for some reason. And so you don't want to be burdened with respecting another person. That's what this really gets down to. You don't want to be burdened with respecting another person and how they want to be referred to. So you are going to impose your own paradigm on that person. And I feel like that just makes you kind of shitty. At least it makes you come across as shitty.
I just said, because I'm trying to remain calm and I'm trying to remain on topic. Can you tell me what I just said? Did I or did I not?
I wasn't talking.
Agree with you.
You're sounding like a bigot?
I did. I actually said the words that I agree with you about the usage of the pronoun they. But at the moment, the both of you are so emotional about this issue, which is a hot button issue. You have missed the fact that I am agreeing with you.
I'm not emotional. I'm laughing about this.
You to get upset and tell me how.
I'm not upset.
I'm upset.
I'm not upset, and no one has called you anything.
You told me, Forrest. You told me that what I was saying was stupid.
No, I didn't.
Oh no!
You got so caught up
Wait a minute,
that you missed saying. Watch back the call as you.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me correct myself. I probably did say what you are saying is stupid. I never said that you are stupid. I never called you a name, but I may have said that what you're saying is stupid. I know for sure that I said it was unnecessary and it was overcomplicated and it was ridiculous and it was silly. And I will continue saying those things. I'm not calling you anything. I'm certainly not getting emotional. I'm laughing a bit because it's kind of silly what the links you're going to avoid.
I just agree with you about that particular usage, and we didn't hear that because we were too busy yelling at what kind of person I am for my silly usages.
We didn't say anything about what kind of you are.
Robust thing.
No, hold on, Jason. I'm wondering
if you agree that the word can be used singularly and has been used singularly since the 1300s, and is just a consistent thing that everybody knows. If you agree with all these positions, then it reinforces what John and I are saying here, which is that it seems that your position on this issue is purely out of your own comfort and just not wanting to readjust your language to what is really more popular in modern different times, which is how language has always worked. So you as an English teacher are going out of your way not to engage in the function of English, and instead are holding to this bizarre, convoluted, and if we're being very honest, selfish worldview about how you think English should work.
Well, I am a teacher. It is my job to teach the standard. And so I wanted to talk about the ethics of that. And apparently you think it's a very selfish thing for me to teach standard English in a standard way in a public school classroom. That was the purpose of my call, to discuss that.
If you had taught, Jason, if you were teaching standard English, you would teach that they is a singular pronoun as well as a plural pronoun. It can be used either way.
Again,
and that as gender is a social construct, there are more than two options. And so if you don't want to call yourself he or she because you don't feel you fall into those categories, they is an appropriate way to refer to yourself. And it's very popular and it's very common and it's been around for a long time. Those are all standard English lessons.
Well, I don't agree that it's been, I know that it was in usage, but it's gone out of usage and it's come back. That's the history. I think you've got a bandwagon fallacy there in that it's very popular. I don't care if it's popular. That's a bandwagon fallacy. Yeah,
that's not. I wasn't saying it's accurate because it's popular. Oh my God, dude, that's not what the bandwagon fallacy is.
But Jason, yeah, you're totally wrong about the fallacy there because Forrest wasn't saying it is correct because a lot of people do it that way. What Forrest, maybe Forrest can correct me on my understanding of what he was saying was just that, the way that language changes, we are now using it like in this way, which is still a fine way to use it. Is perfectly permissible in the language. It's just that culture has shifted to do this thing, and that's not a bandwagon fallacy because it was never wrong to use it a different way.
Well, that I think I'll concede that, but I don't think it's working for the reason that you say. You were saying the one thing that you did say that I think makes it a bandwagon, makes me wrong about it, is that people were using it. I'm not remembering it precisely, but I'll agree with you that was not a bandwagon fallacy. But again, what I'm trying to say is, if I disagree because of the structure, because of the study I put into the structure of English, which has an internally consistent set of rules and a bunch of idioms, how can I properly do it if I can argue grammatically that it doesn't work? And that was the entire purpose of my call.
Because you can't argue grammatically that it doesn't work.
Hold on, I'm very confused because Jason, you seem to agree that it's been used in a singular fashion since however long, and it's been that way for the longest time. It's been grammatically fine for the longest time, but it seems like now you think that it's not grammatically working fine.
No, I agree that people use it. I don't think it's a good usage. When I was in school 35 years ago.
Is it a wrong usage? Is it not how English works? Is it not how English works?
Changes.
Is it not how English works?
Etymology as well.
Does English work that way? Does English work that way?
Which way?
Huh?
I missed it.
Does they them being used as singular to refer as a pronoun being used singularly to refer to a single person? Is that not how it's always worked, like in English?
No, it's not how it's always worked. It didn't work
not always,
35 years ago, as I said earlier. So
it did work that way 35 years ago, Jason.
Yeah.
Like even Jason, first of all, you're fucking wrong. And second of all, even if you were right, you yourself said it went out of style and now it's come back into style, which means it's back in common usage, which is why it's being used, because words don't have strict definitions. They have usages, right? It's why in the dictionary, the word one of the definitions of the word literally is not literally, because that's the way it's used. And you could go back at a certain time. You could go back to the 1920s and say cool to somebody and they would wonder why you're talking about temperature. But for the past 100 years, we've all known that the word cool also means nonchalant and cavalier and attractive and stylish and whatever else, right? because that's how fucking words work, dude. So like, even if I agreed with your narrative that there was a brief period in human history somewhere between the 1300s and the 2020s where for some reason we stopped using the singular they, it doesn't stand a reason to say that today we can't use it that way. And I hear you talking over me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I've got a fucking thing right here. The Oxford English Dictionary's website has a whole fucking article on the history of the singular they and how these fucking, the editors in chief of the dictionary argue against people saying that it can't be used singularly. Like, this is not fucking news, dude. It's way more complicated to try to do things the way you're doing it.
I'm merely advocating for the standard of English that is taught in classrooms, and I've been in classrooms for decades, and it's not what you're saying. So I'm advocating
So
standard.
Jason,
It's like
Jason,
I know.
Do you think, Jason, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms, because you live in Missouri, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms in Missouri, not including the idea of non-binary gender pronouns, do you think that that is more guided by like academic standards of what English is and how English works? Or do you think that has more to do with the fact that you live in a very conservative state, in a very conservative country that is currently struggling with the idea of non-binary gender, even as the vast preponderance of scientists have come out in favor of this, and like it's a big cultural movement? Do you think maybe 35 years ago, when none of this shit was coming out and being as public, maybe then also the culture in which you are living may have influenced the fact that you weren't teaching about non-binary gender pronouns at the time? Maybe.
I think, to genuinely answer your question, which was quite lengthy, so I hope I get a hold of it, is that I don't think that it applies the way you're saying, or meaning, because that was a big one.
It was a pretty simple question.
Well, it was, yes, but you said a lot of different things, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite internalize all of it. So
I fleshed out the idea. Do you want me to do it again, but slower? Like, I fleshed out the idea, but it's a very simple question.
That I got all the parts, and they didn't. And so here's, I'm going to try and answer the question as I remember it, and I've got it. If I have it wrong, please correct me. I don't think the social climate of my time, which was quite anti-LGBT, et cetera, which is not a part of what relates to my question, had anything to do with how it was taught in those days. I think it was taught as a standard, and that there were usages for those pronouns that were in a certain way, and they were used in that way, and they were not used differently. And when I was in school and I misused it, which is the common alternative usage now, I was chastised for misusing the pronoun. So it was taught that way, and then I was taught that way, and I still think that it's a robust standard. And if I've missed, and
Jason, let me ask you this: do you think that we should update our current usage in a modern context, not in like any other older context? Do you think that we should update our usage to include our ever expanding knowledge of like sex and gender, so that people that are not part of the gendered binary can be fairly represented? Because let me just tell you right now, Jason, if somebody comes up to you and be like, hey, I'm non-binary, I want you to use they, them for me, and then you ask their name and only will use their name to refer to them, that is so like I'm trying to think of the word. You're dismissing their identity at that point. You're dismissing what they just told you.
Such as you, and I hear one such as you speak, and tell me that I am doing a certain thing that I am not doing. I find myself angered by you and others such as you, and one.
Oh, so you're getting emotional now.
No,
don't get emotional.
I'm telling you, by using the pronouns that you say don't work, that it works.
Okay, so again, what I want to say is that you're making the case to justify you not having to show respect to another person, is what it boils down to, at least for me.
In no way. I am part of the LGBT community. I founded the LGBT center at my college 30 years ago. I protest. I vote. In no way is what you're saying correct. I simply think standard English does what it should with the formal and personal pronouns. And I wanted to talk about the essence of teaching it.
As a member,
Right.
as
So
a member of
Jason-
the LGBT community,
Now I
Jason,
sound
as
like a transphobe
Jason,
when I'm
Jason,
not lying.
Jason, as a member of the LGBT community,
Lewis, with a trans
Jason, as a member of the LGBT community, I don't know what you are, right? But you can tell me, like I'm assuming we can engage in hypotheticals here. If you went up to a person and said, like, I am a gay person and I have a husband or whatever, like you explain, I'm married and I'm gay. And that person said, okay, who's the man and who's the woman in your marriage? You would understand how that's a shitty microaggression, right?
I wouldn't call it a microaggression. I would just call it shitty. But that's not, again, what I'm doing.
But so you understand how that would be shitty, and how even if this person were to then tell you, well, I mean, fuck, dude, the standard has been man and woman in marriage. So I'm just putting it into the standard the way it's always been in a way that makes sense for me. And so like, I'm not going to misgender your husband. I'm not going to call your husband a different name. I'm not going to call you a slur, but I'm just going to say that this person's the woman in the marriage. Like, cause that's the standard. You can see how that would still be an increasingly shitty thing to do, that maybe this person means well, thinks well, whatever, but it's really just ridiculously dumb, and it goes well above like what you would expect a normal, reasonable person to do. It's a shitty thing to do. It overcomplicates a relatively uncomplicated situation. You get that, right?
There's been an awful lot said, and I think we may have forgotten what I said at the beginning of the call, which is that the pronouns, when you look at their histories, and I'm talking about he and I'm talking about she, can be used in this way, man. Okay? They can
I'm just trying to get across to you.
Man and God.
I'm just trying to get across to you, Jason, that you are doing the same fucking thing here. When you tell when someone approaches you and says, hey, I use they, them pronouns, and you say, okay, I'm only going to refer to you by your name. I refuse to engage in the pronouns that you use. I refuse to validate the pronouns that you use. I refuse to accept and justify and participate in this paradigm that you are expressing here. Because when you look at the history of the words, I, as an academic, can tell you, when you look at the history of the language, it has this in this context. Nobody gives half a shit about your academic studies in this way, or the way that you think you have a superior opinion to other academics in this area who don't think anything you're saying is reasonable and don't support anything you're saying. And all it makes you sound like is an asshole. You're overcomplicating something. And if you come along and say, no, it's okay, I'm LGBT, I protest, it doesn't matter, because all you gave this person is, I refuse to participate in your identity. It's the same way as somebody asking a gay couple, well, who's the man? It's just fucking shitty. It's overcomplicating something that isn't complicated for your erudite opinions as a great expert in this field that disagrees with other experts in this field that nobody has time to listen to, and you're not going to explain. It just makes you look like a dick. That's all we're saying.
I think you've misrepresented what I'm saying. I don't want and don't do the who's the man in the marriage thing. People have asked me about that with my boyfriend. It is a shitty thing. Okay?
I never claimed you did.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you are objecting to that construction. You talked about how that very thing, you used that very example. I am starting to get a little emotional at this point. But here's all I'm saying is that there is a history of pronoun being used in a gender neutral way.
Yeah, okay, we understand that there, Jason.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit, Jason?
So I think the real question, hey, Jason, I need to ask you a question.
I will concede they, them, if you will understand that what I'm trying to say is that he has had a gender neutral construction.
He does not. Okay. Yes, Jason. Sometimes he can be used in a gender neutral way, in the same way that sometimes dude is used gender neutrally, and all sorts of things. Now, the question to you, Jason, is if you walk up to a woman and call her a he, do you think that she is going to be hurt and offended and annoyed, or do you think she is going to stop and say, as an English teacher, can you please explain to me the history of the word he and how it can be gender neutral in this way so that I can choose whether or not I understand whether you are a bigot or just someone with a great opinion? Or do you think she's just going to be fucking annoyed and hurt by that? What do you think is going to happen, Jason?
I don't think that would be the usage I would use. I know that many times in my life, and I've seen other people do it, and I've heard it on these various shows, where people refer to people as a group as guys, and nobody gets upset. So, I mean, it does happen.
Guys and he are different words, right?
That's a very common construction these days to say, hey, guys.
Yes.
And it has a history of being used in a neutral way. So
yes, there are, just to be clear, there are some people who disagree with that and don't think it should be used that way and are arguing for the language to be changed and for us to all collectively stop using it that way because it doesn't work that way. And I don't agree with their arguments, but I think they're valid arguments. The question is, you're not using the word guys, Jason. You're arguing for the word he.
Sometimes. It goes back and forth over time. So we're
right. It goes back and forth over time, like a language, Jason, like a language that also uses a singular they.
But I already conceded that, did I not? I mean, I could not avoid such. But
Jason,
can you repeat what I said without mocking me about he?
No, Jason, I have a question for you.
Okay,
I have a.
Trans people.
I have a question for you. I'm wanting to know, kind of, I guess, a good wrap up for our conversation here is answering just this one very poignant question. And that's, do you think the ethics of using your idea of English is more important than the ethics of you respecting someone's identity?
I wanted to talk about that at the beginning of this call, but I got really upset. I've been saying over and over again,
I'm sorry. You screaming the word, somebody got really upset is very fucking funny, Jason. That's really great.
It is really great. That's what I called in. I wanted to talk about.
Oh my God.
No.
Okay,
Jason, I would like you to just ask yourself seriously, because I asked the question a minute ago and I feel like you didn't really answer it seriously. Just, you walk up to a trans woman and start calling her a he. You walk up to a mask-presenting non-binary person and start calling them a he. You start using traditionally male pronouns and collective nouns and all these things for these people and say, no, it's okay, because I don't agree with your construction, all right? This other one, it doesn't make any sense. And all John has been saying this whole time and all I've been saying this whole time is, for number one, academia disagrees with you, just standard English disagrees with you. But most importantly, even if you had some case for this, just common parlance doesn't work that way. And you, as an English teacher of all fucking people, should be able to recognize that language changes over time, English changes over time, usages change over time. And you sitting here arguing about this to somebody when they're just looking for basic human dignity, especially in today's political climate, doesn't make you academic or intelligent or any of that. It just makes you a dick.
But I called him he, and I said no repeatedly. So I'm telling you that I am willing to show respect.
And yet, that's what you're arguing for.
Teach it in the classroom, and apparently we can't talk about that, which is a shame because I understand.
How would you teach it in a classroom? How would you teach it in a classroom that it's not appropriate to use singular they, despite the fact that lots and lots of people do all the time and have for a very long time?
See, I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that I didn't say that. So, you
did.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't refer to a transgendered person as he if that person is not he. So I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that regard. But it doesn't matter. You're wanting me to get off the call because you think I'm sort of a ridiculous idiot. and that's okay.
Nobody said any of that either. It's again, it's very funny to have you be fucking screaming about how somebody else is emotional, and then in the same breath as you claim that I'm straw manning you, you then say you think I'm a ridiculous idiot. You want me to get off this call, which no one has said at all. You're just putting words in our mouth.
I did do that wrong. Yes, I did. I did that wrong. Okay.
So Jason, I do want to clarify something. We weren't trying to imply like what you had said about the trans person calling them he or whatnot. What you said originally, just so that we can come back around to this, you said that you would reject the usage of they them that is requested of you, and you would instead just use their name. And I pointed out at the time how that's very disrespectful and also is dismissing their non-binary identity. And I wonder if you recognize that.
I am disrespecting their gender by using the name by which they are generally identified. I do not think makes.
You are disrespecting them by singling them out in the way that you treat them and making a really complicated situation out of something that is genuinely simple and commonplace and everyday and non-consequential.
And not standard, which is my job, and I wanted to.
It is standard. It is standard, and it has been standard for hundreds of years. And even if there was this weird lapse in usage that you talk about, which I don't believe exists, because the fucking Oxford English Dictionary doesn't believe it exists. I'm not an English person, I'm just a biologist, a big dumb stupid idiot. But like, I can't.
Your video about what transgender people.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. I didn't say you were calling me that. I was making a joke. I was being facetious and downplaying myself. This is the most one-sided emotional conversation. It's bizarre. Like, there's so much fucking anger and frustration coming from across the phone, and we're just trying to get down to brass tacks of the fact, like, if you reject this concept, you are not only doing English wrong, you're also just being an asshole. That's the whole thing. That's the entire argument. Is that, like, even if I agreed with your academic perception of what English should be, that isn't how it is used commonly, and you're making a big deal out of nothing, and you're further marginalizing non-binary people and making them feel more out of place and more rejected and more of a fucking pariah, and you're making them feel like they're out of, like, just this thing that everybody has to cater to and kowtow to, and it's such a fucking inconvenience for you that you now have to go out of your way to not use pronouns at all when talking about them, but only use their name, which, by the way, I can't get over the fact that this whole time you keep saying I would use their name to talk about them. You're using fucking singular they and them, dude. It's just like that whole fucking thing is just so unnecessarily convoluted just to get to a point where you feel more comfortable. It's not about your fucking comfort, Jason. It's about their fucking humanity. And it's weird to me that you're making this big of a deal out of it. That's the whole thing. That's all I'm trying to get across to you for 36 agonizing minutes.
That you did, because it's not about my fucking comfort. I wanted to talk about the ethics of the standard and not about my
The ethics is using they them. That's the ethical position.
Right. Jason, I'm glad that you brought it back to the ethics, because, like, I want to know, do you think that your ethics and your perception of correct grammar is more important than the ethics of correctly identifying someone by their pronouns?
I think that I'm glad you brought that back, because I wanted to answer that. I don't think it's more important, but I don't think it misidentifies the way I have described it. I don't know if you caught it, because I only did it once, and we've all been talking over each other. Okay? But no, I don't think it's more important. I wanted to talk about how to teach it, because, Forrest, I know you're a teacher. And so that's all I really wanted to do. And it seems,
but correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but it seems like your position on that is to not teach it, right? Like, you're saying don't teach the singular use of they, them.
Again, it's not that. No, how is what I wanted to talk about, and what was ethically correct.
Let me help you. Let me help you then. I'll do that.
Tell you how I do it.
I've got it for you. So it's what I already did a minute ago, and then you completely ignored it and strawman. If I was speaking to a class, if I was an English teacher today, if I was smart enough to be an English teacher, I would be up in front of the classroom and I'm teaching about pronouns. I'm like, all right, y'all, sometimes, right, I don't want to use somebody's name over and over and over because that's really weird and clunky and difficult to keep up with. And so here's what we're going to say. We can say he or him or it or she or her or they or them. We have all these words and these are called pronouns. And so typically boys are referred to with he and him and his, and typically girls are referred to with she and her and hers. But what if you're neither a boy nor a girl, right? Because gender is a social construct, it's a really fuzzy thing. Well, we have this other option. Most people who fall into that category, what we call non-binary, they generally like to go by they and them, which really works for them. But there are also other options out there. And so it's really just polite, if you're not sure, to ask somebody. And that's why you'll also notice a lot of adults will introduce themselves by telling you what pronouns they prefer as well. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes. And that's just to make things easier. The most important thing, kids, is to remember to respect people's pronouns. And if you get them wrong, apologize and try to do better in the future. That's the biggest thing. That's how I would teach it if I was a teacher, Jason. That'd be that fucking hard.
I tell you that I am learning from this call, Forrest. I don't think I would disagree with anything you said except for one tiny tweak where I feel like I have to address standard and non-standard usage and basically you've helped me understand how to better do these things, both of you. And so I appreciate that. Okay. I would probably give that speech that you gave, Forrest. I probably would. But I would address standard and non-standard issues and the history of the words to show that, as you've pointed out repeatedly, language changes. I'm very much aware of that. And what I'm trying to say is some of the older usages aren't as derogatory as we're making them out to be. And so I would encourage kids to learn about the history of the language. Read Baugh's History of the English Language. It's a wonderful thing. And so, okay.
You know what would be incredibly difficult in that respect, Jason? Jason, it'd be really difficult for you to maintain that and tell them to read Chaucer or Shakespeare or Jane Austen, considering they use the singular they them
they all the time.
I thought adults.
Anyway,
I could tell adults that. I could tell it's not who you're teaching how you do that. But I don't disagree with what you said, Forrest. I would probably say that in class, and that does help me do it better.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad we could be useful, Jason. We're going to talk to you later because we're already 17 minutes over time. But thanks so much for the call.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
Bye-bye. Won't someone please think of the grammar? Please. With that, y'all, it's the end of the show. It's been a fun one. We're over 70 minutes over time, and I've got another show in 30 minutes that I got a call time for, so I've got to go. But John, anything that you want to wrap up with?
Not really. I mean, that was an interesting last call there that we had. Freaking pronoun. It's always the pronouns. I remember one guy we had wanted to identify as a helicopter and then played stupid about that whole thing. It was really crazy. But in any case, I feel like
made some progress.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I hope Jason learns from that and maybe can communicate better, but it really kind of came across, at least at first, like he was like, well, it's more important to adhere to the traditional usages of these things, which I feel like he wasn't even correct about, but it's, whatever.
That's the biggest thing. I feel like he wasn't correct about these traditional usage, and it depends on what you mean by traditional, right? But like, I feel like he wasn't correct on the historical usage of this. And again, I don't know if it came up in chat because I don't have the wrench, but like I did show this do I put singular? I closed the tab. Here we go. I did show this for a minute. This was a an article from frickin' the Oxford English Dictionary that I had up on my screen for a moment there, of a brief history of the singular they. This is from OED.com. Hold on a second. I can actually bring it closer to the middle of the screen. I just have to make sure I don't have Call in Studio up, because otherwise I'm going to dox a lot of people. There we go. Now I put that back in the middle of the screen, and now I can share it that way. Yeah, so like you've got like, this is the frickin' Oxford, like with this whole history of it. And I highlighted this at the very end here about like, you know, the editor, former editor in chief of this dictionary also dismisses objections to this singular use of they being unsupported by historical record. And so it's just like, I don't know, man. Even people who object to singular they as a grammatical error use it themselves when they're not looking. A sure sign that anyone who objects to a singular they is, if not a fool or an idiot, at least hopelessly out of date. I didn't write that. The dictionary did. But like, that's the thing for me, is like, it's, even if I agreed with what Jason was saying, it's just so unnecessarily clunky and awkward, and it definitely is harmful. So I appreciate the fact that at the end there, he was saying like, you know, that he's learned something from this call. That makes me happy. It got heated for a minute, but I hope that we came to some common ground. As we wrap up the show, I'd like to thank our backup host for being our backup host and for hanging around for as long as they did. That'd be Rob. How are you?
I am good. I really doubt you were watching the cameras, but for some of these calls, I was like leaning back and I was convulsing. The support crew will attest to that. I am certain.
Mm-hmm. Shit was wild.
The only thing that I wanted to mention with that is that I do actually, in some way, understand and appreciate, I think it was Jason's want to like appeal to the historicity of it, which he couldn't, right? Because you pulled up the article, that doesn't exist. But the thing that really got me was that he's like, I want to talk about the standardization of it. And I just want to be like, okay, dude. And who determines the standard? How did that come to be? Was it thinking people with beliefs and political ideas that they would like to have? Why is it the standard, dude? Like, that's all they wanted to have.
Yeah, it was rough. It was really rough. Anyway, what a call. What a way to end it. There's a lot there. With that, this is the end of the show. You're here for it. Sorry, that was it. But we'll be back next week. We'll be back next week, Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is the best standard time. I'm pretty sure, isn't the library is open all the time now? If you want to come see, if you want to come watch live, I'm pretty sure that's a thing now. And somebody's either elated or mad that I'm saying that. So tune into that if you want to, or don't. I'm not a cop. Please make sure to go to all the websites, click all the links, sign up on Patreon, become a channel member, do all the things to support the show. Be kind to your neighbors, donate to food banks, and help people out who are losing their SNAP benefits right now. Thank you to our callers, even the ones that sucked. Thank you to our people in chat, even the ones that sucked. Thank you to our mods in chat. Thank you to the producers. Thank you to the call screeners. Thanks to all the people who make this show possible. Thank you to John and Rob for being here. Thank you for watching. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your eyes.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.